Okay, hello everyone who's watching. Today we have our first guest interview on this channel. If you haven't heard of her already, her name is HEMMA HARIDIN, and she's an intuitive energy healer, trained in theta healing as well as an Akashic reader. She's the author of Homeless to Healer, A Journey Through Entrepreneurship, Awakening, and Merging with My Higher Self. And she's been involved in many projects in the world of investing, which you can look up online. I feel like for this particular audience, I feel like it's good to mention that nowadays HEMMA helps entrepreneurs overcome ADHD and connect in deeper ways to their spirituality. And what I really like about her approach is that she gets really deep into the motivations for her clients as to why they want to heal, and not just that, but what is the purpose of their life. And we often forget that because I read somewhere that even on our deathbed, sometimes um, people are afraid to admit that they're about to die, and that they might have spent their lives on something that may not be aligned with how they wanted to view it. Um, so Hemma's approach is very direct, is very efficient. She gets in touch with, I guess you could call, her soul's calling. And yeah, what could be more important than that? So welcome, Hemma.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Where should I begin? What would you like me to start sharing with everyone first?
Um, well, for those who are watching and who haven't heard of Hemma, she's been through a tremendous amount of early life challenges as well as current challenges. Um, would you feel like sharing a little bit about some of the specific events that you feel like has really shaped you and really catalyzed your awakening and the person you are today?
Yeah, I feel like there were so many milestones that we all experience in life that shape us and change us. And I feel like I can pinpoint a point in time where I knew that I was making a shift from who I who I thought I was my whole life into who I truly am. And I feel like that is what most people consider the spiritual awakening, is they start to wake up to a whole new world and a whole new way of operating that they weren't aware of before, that always existed. And we end up turning inward and understanding who we are through a series of catalytic events. So that's, for me, those milestones, those very painful and traumatic events then turned me into tuning into who I am, tuning into my heart, talking to God, source, the universe, to find what that greater purpose was, or to help me get out of that pain. So I grew up in poverty, and it was an experience of seeing what was available in the world to others and not available to me. And inside of me, that was what created a drive to become an entrepreneur from a very early age, wanting to be an entrepreneur. And I would say that my first catalytic experience was getting pregnant at the age of 17, and being a mom very early on, getting married very early, and thinking that that was going to hold me back from accomplishing my dreams or my goals, because I was not able to finish college. And ultimately, it was exactly what I needed, because I didn't finish college. I ended up opening my first store and becoming an entrepreneur. from that experience of not having to go to college. It was very traumatic in that it was a very difficult relationship with her father. And we ended up in a homeless shelter. I was around 22 at the time, and my daughter was 5 years old. And that was what opened the door to me having to figure out how to survive on my own in the world and not feel not get stuck in depression, not get stuck in something that was going to take me in a negative direction, because I knew that I needed to be strong for my daughter. And I knew that I didn't want the life that we had ended up in. I knew that there was something more for me. And there were a series of synchronistic events that led me to opening my store from that shelter. So I would say that was like my first experience of understanding the power that we have as souls. And at the time, not knowing it, but just having a lot of trust in the universe and a lot of trust in myself, and being forced in a position to figure out what my skill sets were, to figure out what my strengths were, and to trust myself to be able to develop them. And I did that through the first set of stores that I opened. Then I would say the second, and I'm giving a very brief here for the interview, there are obviously things in between, but I would say the second catalyst was 4 years later after opening the stores and being what others would call a successful entrepreneur. I felt very empty inside, and I felt empty, and I felt far from my purpose, not knowing at the time what my purpose was. So I ended up selling the stores and having some time off for myself. And in that time was when I found theta healing, which is a modality that I trained in. And that opened up my world it opened me up to the spiritual world. And that was also what allowed me to see the toxicity in my relationship, the toxicity in my childhood and my upbringing, and to realize that what I was brought up in was not normal. Because before that, I thought that what I was living in was normal. And as I went deeper into the spiritual journey and I understood you could be in communion with your soul, you can be connected to source, you can be connected to all that is, you can be loved by people, that there's this whole other way to operate in the world than from pain and separation. That's what then allowed me to separate from that identity that was attached to my family, that life that I was living. And that was what allowed me to see that that wasn't the truth of who I was. And that's why I was unhappy. That being that entrepreneur, being the person that was showing up in those relationships, that wasn't the truth of who I was. And finding this modality allowed me to understand the truth. It allowed me to see what my belief systems were, what my patterns were, what was ingrained in childhood that was creating everything in my life. And as I started to rewrite that and gain strength in that, that's what set me into the direction of becoming a healer. And I'll give a very brief, because there was another catalyst. There will always be catalysts when you want to grow and you want to grow deeper into your purpose. That after becoming a healer, I had this very similar experience just about 4 years later. So, for me, I think there's this timing between 3 and 4 years when we're growing through something, that's when we start to feel if we're in the right direction or not. And then that's when our souls can send us the signals on how to stay oriented. But I'll talk about that a little bit more. But when we're tuned into the feeling of our hearts, we know whether we're in the right direction or not. And about 3 years into being a healer, and after writing the book and working with a lot of people, I knew that it wasn't my full potential. And it was very conflicting for me, because how could it not be? How could it not be? And that was when my role as an investor became clear to me. So I had to make a shift and leave my healing practice behind in New York. So it was the same, for me, it was the same thing having to leave those businesses behind. It was the same thing of having to leave the healing practice behind, and then getting into the world of investing, which then brought me back into a more material world and a less spiritual world, which was conflicting for me also. But having the tools that I had allowed me to work on all of those belief systems to keep diving deeper. Then in that process was what was allowed. It was showing me that I was neurodivergent. It was showing me that I operated differently from the world. And I wasn't able to use the spiritual excuses that I was using prior to leaving my practice. Because when I left the world of entrepreneurship and I entered the spiritual world, it was very isolating, because you could be in meditation, you could isolate yourself, you can separate yourself from what you see in the real world or the physical world and go, everyone else is this or that, whatever judgments we want to place. And
Yeah.
I'm just different.
Mm-hmm. I remember once in a call, and it struck me how you said that how spiritual practice and meditation can be an addiction in itself and a form of escape. And that really struck me. Like the typical ones being drugs or like sugar or, you know, kinds of more material pleasures, but actually meditation, you feel like could also take us away from, you know, what our soul feels drawn to express in our lives is, and that really, yeah, that really resonated with me because I can,
I like
yeah, I have a tendency to self-isolate a lot and feel like I'm making a lot of progress in my life sometimes when I'm meditating, but actually avoiding a lot of triggers and just sort of caging myself in the role of being a spiritual person, and this is me and this is all that I am, when it's really not. Yeah.
I like that you mentioned, we could turn to drugs or sugar, because we can. And that's what allows us to create this safety around us and this false sense of security that keeps us further away from our purpose. And especially those of us that are neurodivergent, it's a way to cope, because we don't know how to be in our bodies. We don't know how to function as human beings. We don't know how to plug into this society and the system that exists, because we're wired differently. Mm-hmm. And what I've found for myself is that I had to learn how to operate. I had to learn how to function. And it was a necessity, because nobody was going to provide for my daughter. I didn't have the option to do drugs. I mean, maybe I did, if I wanted to go that route and just completely abdicate myself from responsibility, I'm sure that's an option. And, even in my own experience, I wasn't raised by my mother. So that was the driver for me, that, oh no, you know what, I don't want to do that to my daughter. However, in me meditating and being spiritual, I was isolating myself from my daughter, and me wanting to reconcile that, her turning to me and going, Mom, you're in your kumbaya meditation and you're not aware of what's happening here in the real world. And that was then me going, okay, what do I need to reconcile here to be closer to my daughter, to be able to provide for her? Because then after I left the healing practice, and then I just saw I couldn't make money in the normal way. And that was why I left my first company. I didn't know how to make money in the normal way. I couldn't do something that wasn't allowing me to be in my highest joy, and I couldn't hold a job. There was no way for me to be able to do that. And it was difficult, because when you have a child, you have to. You don't have an option not to. And meaning, if you want to be there for your child, and if you want to support your child. And that was where I was coming from. There was a deep desire to be able to figure out how to support her, and not just feel like I'm crazy, and not go and admit myself to some psychiatric care. Like, I just knew that's not what I wanted to do, because she was also battling depression. She was also battling her own, and I won't share too much on her, but she was battling what she was battling. And we wanted to find a different way that wasn't therapy, or that wasn't traditional methods. So for me, that was what set me out on, I have to figure this out for us, because we are different. And these methods in the medical system, I don't want her to be labeled. She doesn't want to be labeled. I know she does not have a disability. I know I don't have a disability, because I have my skill sets are so vast. I have to figure out what this truth is about who I am and what my gifts are and what my abilities are. I will forever be on that journey as long as I'm in this body. It's going to be unfolding this entire life. But and I feel like that the more that I create, the more that I'm shown how the neurodivergence works, and the more that I work with other people and see how they operate and see how their brains are working and see how they put patterns together, it's informing me more about myself. It's informing me more about what the future of humanity is, like the future of people that are operating this way, how we're meant to create, what systems we're meant to build, what systems we're meant to plug into. And for me, that's the purpose of all of us here, especially with neurodivergence, is to not just fall into the mainstream, is to create a new stream. We're creating a new stream of energy by understanding our gifts, understanding our abilities, understanding our sensitivities. So my sensitivities, spiritual people, we are sensitive, we're highly sensitive, meaning we absorb all types of information and then we become overstimulated. So those of us that want to regulate ourselves, we go into meditation. Then we get addicted to the meditation because that's helping us regulate. So then we can't come back in to society. Then we become dysregulated again. It's such a vicious cycle that we're in. And for me, I got to the point, and this is also why I was no longer happy being a healer. I was running my body down in healing sessions. I would be so exhausted. And I knew that that wasn't right. I shouldn't be leaving a session. I shouldn't be exhausted. I'm not understanding how to manage my body's energy, and I wanted to figure it out. So in that process, I was diagnosed with a couple of different things. I don't want to use, so I do want to make a disclaimer because I'm not a medical doctor and I don't want to use specific diagnosis, because also everyone should just seek medical attention if they need to before they're self-diagnosing, and just use discernment in that. But I knew that so there was a few degenerative neurological diseases that they were looking at because my nervous system I wouldn't be able to talk. I would have too many spasms or tics. And you couldn't tell now. It's, people just, also because we learn how to mask them too. That's another thing too. We learn how to mask. So I had to unravel that for myself. And it was very, very challenging because I knew, since they were trying to find all these different diagnoses, that they didn't know what they were talking about. And I needed to intuitively go into my body and see what it was. And coming from having learned how to say that again.
It's like when they don't know what you are, you're autoimmune. Yeah, I've definitely
exactly.
I've definitely
they put you under
a lot of experiences with doctors over the years where my chronic fatigue was labeled as like, just anxiety or all kinds of things, Lyme disease or toxins, viruses, and they may all play a role. I feel like for me personally, it's always deeply connected to just the profound sense of anxiety of being different and feeling unworthy in a world that that doesn't understand you, and the coping mechanisms I developed as a child. Like you can use labels like ADHD, OCD, narcissism, avoidance, schizoid, and all of them I've been like given like over the years. But yeah, it's a double-edged sword because labels, it can be a relief to know that you're not alone, but also you don't want to be tied to that label. You don't want to be defined by your trauma, and the coping mechanisms that you confuse for your true self or your personality.
Exactly. And the medical world doesn't take in any from the spiritual world. They don't take into account spiritual abilities, and they can't right now because our science is not based on what you can't see. So as beings that are awake and in tune with the more non-physical, so for me, that's what spiritual is. It's not altruism or morality just in those ways. It's just us knowing that we're multidimensional. So more than just the physical, that we have non-physical aspects to us. And my daughter, when she was 7, she started to see auras, and she would tell me what she's seeing, that she would see colors around people, and she would ask me, and I had no clue. But I was raised Hindu, so I was raised already with this understanding of the spiritual bodies. But I was raised in a very dogmatic way, so it wasn't helpful. That's why I had to journey for myself and find the answers for myself. And if I looked at my daughter and said, "You're weird, you're different, don't tell people," whatever it was, or when she would just go through whatever she's going through, then she would think something's wrong with her. And that's what we grow up thinking, that something's wrong with us. So we suppress the abilities. That shuts our nervous system down. That creates autoimmune disease. And again, I'm just saying that's what I found in myself, because there was so much that I had to overcome with neurological issues. And I found that I could just heal them myself, tapping into my connection with my soul and understanding the wounding and the pain and the belief systems that my ancestry imprinted on me, and working on that spiritual level to identify what was happening materially, and then also working on my body physically at the same time. So what exercises, how did I need to stim? How did I need to recognize when I was masking? How do I need to ground and regulate myself when I need to connect into nature, put my feet on the ground, sun gaze, just things that I needed to do that I found were helpful to regulate myself. And these are usually considered spiritual things, where it's, no, I can regulate myself. Instead of popping a pill, I can regulate myself by going for a swim in a cold river or sitting in meditation. I can regulate myself by sitting in a park, by taking in the sun. And in the beginning, you think that you're different, you're wrong, but no, this is just naturally, as human beings, how we're meant to recharge ourselves and recharge our batteries. And I feel like us bringing awareness to this, that this is all that we need. This is all that we need. And then the more that I would do those things, the more my abilities would come online. I would be even more intuitive. I would feel even more. I mean, even now, the abilities open up in such a way that sometimes it opens up too much. And even now I have to go, okay, like, how do I regulate this? Like, I'm getting dysregulated again. So for example, I just flew over here. I'm in Paris now. We're meeting a team member. There's all this work that has to be done. I need at least 2 days to get regulated before that happens, because just going through an airport, picking up all those energies, I have to know myself, and I have to work on myself constantly. And if we don't have it in our awareness that we need this, not just as self-care, but just as basic need in the way that we operate, to be able to ground ourselves, to be able to clear our energy fields from everything that we're picking up. Because sometimes we don't have a choice as beings that are neurodivergent, that just pick up things in the environment. We don't have a choice. Sometimes we are just picking up things because that's the way, not just our mind and body, but our fields. And for me, what I've tapped into is everyone that I've worked with that is either autistic, dealing with ADHD, OCD, anything, schizophrenia, anything. We have psychic centers that are open because they can hear things, they can see things, they can feel things that people don't feel. And when we're not taught as children, when our parents don't know our abilities, we're not taught how to manage that, where we get overloaded in the system. So for me, just number one, being able to just see somebody and say, I see what's going on with you, and I recognize what's going on with you, and I can see you on different levels. That's healing in itself. There's just a huge weight that gets lifted. So there's not even really work that we have to do, other than I see you and I know we're different and I know it's okay, and we can just figure out how we need to operate from here. and how we can allow that to be our guiding light instead of thinking that we have to fit into society, or we have to please our parents, or we have to get a job and we have to do normal things. That will continue, that will keep us in the vicious cycle. We don't have to do what's considered normal. And although right now it looks like I'm an author, not that it looks like I actually am, but I'm an author, I created a hedge fund, I now have an institute. I don't do these things in normal ways. If you ask anybody, the way I run my company is completely insane. It's just not by any normal standard. And for me, I have to stay true to myself, that I'm not going to run things based on old business models. I'm not going to run a team or create things based on old models. We are all operating in our divergence because everyone is divergent in their own way. It's creativity. All it is creativity. And we're going to bring that to the table. And when we need time to rest our bodies, we stop and we rest our bodies. When I get download, that I wrote my book in 4 days, it was a download. It just came in, and if I just need to just let it come through like that and then share it with the world, then I just need to do that. I'm not going to try to call a regular publisher and try to fit into, I'm not going to do that. And I feel like now we're in a time where we're all really blessed to be able to tap into resources that can support us. And that's what I want to bring awareness to, that we have resources now, that there are spaces out there that we could tap into to help us figure out how to utilize our gifts and turn that into being functional for ourselves, not just for society at large, but for ourselves, that we can understand what other people consider disability is a true gift. So in us not being able to interact socially in the same way is a gift, because then we're able to tune in very deep. Then we're able to pick up more information. Then we're able to understand how to serve somebody even better than just plugging into a way that is socially accepted. And us having the freedom to do that, because as a human being, you feel weird, you feel awkward. And just us being uncomfortable, learning how to be comfortable with being weird and being awkward, that takes away depression. It takes away depression, because the depression comes from, I need to isolate because who I am is not okay. And who I am is wrong. And at the core, when you're operating with that, nothing is going to be okay that you do. Because even when I created my fund, I was still in depression because I'm doing it the wrong way. Still in depression, not happy. Was like, I'm ready to exit the planet now. I feel like I'm done. And then my partner at the time, she was just like, well, I don't think that's healthy. Like, I don't think you're in a healthy place right now. And I'm responding to, I'm multidimensional. Nobody's going to get this. How am I going to speak to the world about this? And that was putting me in a downward spiral. And she was able to hold the space for me. And my whole team also, like, you're good. Just let it keep coming, right? Like, let the craziness keep coming. And if we all find people like that can just help us reflect that back to each other, that starts to create a ripple that will help us figure out how to be functional. And we will need things in society to help us transition. We're not going to just go off and create brand new ways. Maybe we can. I'm not saying that we can't, but we're not going to right now be able to completely pull out of society. Unless you do want to live the monk lifestyle or the Buddhist lifestyle, that's also an option. But I've come across a lot of people that have tried that and it still doesn't bring them happiness or wholeness, because it doesn't feel right, because they feel like they're supposed to be in society. That's what I felt when I knew that I was pulling away from my daughter. And I thought that I was going to have to just live this spiritual life where I was isolated in some space that I was creating for myself and off in the jungle somewhere. Because I went through all of those phases. When that was pulling me further away from her, I knew that wasn't the truth. And I was conflicted because not all, some gurus out there were saying, well, you need to be in meditation 6 hours a day. You need to do all these. And for me, it wasn't the truth. So I had to find what was the truth for me. How do I operate in a place that I can honor my body and what my body needs, and I can keep getting the direction from my soul and also be in society.
That's incredible. I love what you said about how, you know, we're all different. We're all neurodivergent people. We're all special. Everyone's special in their own way. We all need to find our authentic selves and be that person because everyone is a puzzle piece to this world. You know, it's just finding that purpose. My whole life, I'm like, I have no purpose. My purpose, I've been living my whole life. I didn't even know it. You know, it's just be here to help other people when they're feeling down, push them in the right direction a little bit. That's my purpose. But I love what you said about that.
Thank you, Sheila. I'd love to hear a bit if there's more that you want to share just about your journey in with neurodivergence and your spiritual awakening. I'd love to hear more.
Well, I will say that I have a family. I have a mom and dad and a brother, and they get each other. Then there's me. You know, I'm the black sheep of the family. Still to this day, they talk down to me. You know, they still think that I'm crazy because none of them have gone through what we have gone through. And so it's really hard, you know, when your family doesn't support you and they're saying you're crazy, but you know deep down you're not crazy. Everyone has that within them to be able to, you know, find whatever it is you need inside of you. And I love that. Like, that's what I found out in the last few months is that, wow, the feelings I've had in my heart really are more than I could find outside of myself. It's an amazing journey. But yeah, definitely black sheep of the family. It's been really, really hard, but now it's like just going to be who I am. And it's gotten a lot easier. And also I had a son at 8, I was 19 when I had him, and it was tough, you know, and I got married at 20 for 15 years. And now I'm going through a divorce because the universe was trying to push me out of that. There was many red flags, many signs like, hey, this is not your purpose. This is not what you should be doing. This is not the life you should be living. And the universe will just literally pick you up and throw you out if you're not living what you're supposed to be doing. And that's what's happening. But I'm grateful.
So how about when you said, like 6 hours of meditation for you, and now what you're doing to help people is to, like make more efficient kinds of meditations that get really deep into, why why they want to not just survive but thrive, not just like get by and scrape by. And it's so easy to play small and be addicted to smallness. And I like what you said once to me, that we're addicted to pain. And some people may not really understand that the first time they hear it. So would you like to elaborate on that phrase?
Thank you. That's a beautiful point for us to go into. Most of us are addicted to pain because we don't understand what's available to us. We don't understand what else is available. So, Shiloh, what you were also saying about your family and the marriage that you were in, when we're in it, we don't understand what's outside of it. We can't even taste or imagine what's outside of it until something pushes us out. Like you say, the universe pushes you. You can resist that push up to a certain point, but but otherwise the person is going to leave you or something is going to happen where you have no choice. That's when we recognize that, oh wait, I was in pain. And we get so addicted to what we are used to, especially when it looks like, oh no, I should stay in this marriage because that's good for my child. That's what society is telling me. We don't realize we're addicted to the pain of that toxicity because society is telling us that that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Nobody's telling my family was like, don't get divorced.
yeah, it's such like deprogramming. Like we're taught at such an early age that we're victims, and it's like there's kind of this like tragic romantic sense of being a victim, like because and it's easy because you can sometimes there are ways to get validation from that and be addicted to that validation and not see the cost of what you're doing to your soul by not living your up to your full potential and actually just catering to other people's preferences and calling that happiness.
Exactly. And this is why I focus the work on helping people tap into their higher selves, because we're human beings in a vehicle, but we have this greater aspect to us that is the reason why we're here, and it knows why we're here. We forget that through the birth process. We forget that. So for me, when I reconnected to my to what I would have called back then my higher self, which now I'm just like, well, it's me. It's me. Now I'm here. Now I have arrived. I am on earth. I am in my body. This is what it's supposed to feel like. This is what the path was. This is what the whole thing was for. Game over. But before,
yeah, and I want to be there someday.
And we all will be, right? If you want to, you will be. And I feel like the purpose of conversations like this is for that. Is for that. It's the space for that. So the reason why I do that, because in 2015, when I sold my first companies and was going back into that depressive place, which at the time, I didn't even know that was depression. It was just like, oh, you're just meant to be negative and unhappy when things don't work out. You're just meant to be unhappy. That's in society. That's what we're taught. That's what you mean. I feel like that's when you say the romanticized victim, we're taught, because, even when your mother, no, not all mothers, but if you tell somebody you're in pain, the first thing is, oh, are you okay? It's just like oh, okay, now I can feel good for feeling bad. And that's what we're taught. And for me, when I went into healing, it was, oh, wait, no, it's I have the power to heal myself. I have the power to self-source. I have the power to change my circumstances. So being a victim is actually painful. That was when it flipped for me. And before we are exposed, I want to put it this way, before we're exposed to what the solution feels like, we have no other option but then to be addicted to the pain. So when we create spaces for healing, or when we create spaces for people to see each other, or when we start to tap into, when we go into meditation, we start to tap into the greater universe, and when we start to tap into the energy of our souls, you start to taste what it feels like to live without the pain. I feel like what creates then a dark night of the soul, which is a term that you used before, I think before we started recording, and so I want to touch on it now, is when that gap between what we feel in meditation and what our environment is doing to us is in so much conflict. That's when we experience that dark night of the soul, because we have to change our circumstances. And in meditation, you can instantly go into meditation, change your state, because you can tap in. And I'm not saying everybody can do this, but when you're in meditation, you can tap in to another state. When you do drugs, you can tap into another state. And I know a lot of us have experienced some sort of psychedelic that helps us tap in, or it doesn't have to be a psychedelic. It could be there's so many different types of drugs. But also like a beautiful lover can open you up to something. That's also why that's such a painful experience when a person that you love leaves you, because you've gotten this hit. You start to get these hits of what things could be. And then you go back to your baseline and you go back to your environment, and you actually don't know how to change it, because it is difficult to change your financial situation. You do have to find ways for it to work, for you to manifest and create money. You just have to. And that dark night is what starts to crack us open, to take out the shell of the limiting beliefs, to open up our minds and our bodies to receiving instructions. For me, meditation is about receiving instructions. So to also circle it back around to your point, what you're saying about the 6 hours of meditation, when I said that it's not efficient, I'm downloading so much in a meditation. I don't need 6 hours for that, right? I don't need 6 hours to do that. I can go into meditation, get my instructions, know what I need to do, get out of my meditation. I need to call this person to connect me to the next person, to give me my next opportunity, to get me out of my situation that I'm in. So I use meditation to regulate and then take action. So since I felt like I had that down packed, and being in meditation would actually overstimulate me more, because then I would start to astral travel, go in all these other directions, be bombarded with a whole bunch of things that then when I'm out of meditation, I look at the physical world around me and it doesn't match. And it was making it harder or worse for me to operate when I would go too long in meditation. And for us with the brains that are neurodivergent, I think that when we start to go into meditation, we tap in, we receive so much. So if you're not guided or directed, and if you don't know how to guide yourself through layers and to block out the other things that you're receiving, then meditation is not such a good experience for you. That's what makes it very difficult. So when you initially start the journey, yes, you have to learn how to, it's just focusing your attention. It's not about stopping the mind. It's just about focusing your intention, because then you can start to witness what's happening. When you start to do that, you can then create the game plan that you, for me, it's about creating the game plan. You're doing this for a reason, not just to shut out the world. You're doing it to understand what is in you that's creating experiences of lack, of victimization. So for me, when I direct people, it's like, we're going to go into meditation and then we're going to go directly to like, what is causing you pain? And what are you doing to cope with that pain? Okay, so if you're using drugs or, does that make you happy? Does it make you happy? The thing is that we can have addictions and we can have obsessions that make us happy, that truly make us happy. Or we can have, like, I eat donuts nonstop. And it's just, like when I'm in a creative mode, I have like these periods where I'm consuming something that it helps me create. And it makes me happy. I don't feel guilty. I don't feel shame. I don't feel bad about it. It makes me happy. And I'm obsessive. When I'm working on a project, I'm obsessed about that project that I'm working on. Not to the detriment of where I'm giving myself away or giving my power away to it, because I've learned that balance in myself. Because I've learned what causes me to act from a place of wanting to fill a void inside of me. So I've learned the difference between healthy, addictive, and obsessive patterns and unhealthy, addictive, and obsessive patterns. So spirituality can also keep us in duality or polarity, saying you have to give up this, you have to do this, to have a high vibration, you can't eat meat, and it's just resolving that, because none of that is the truth. We're meant to do whatever we want. We're physical and non-physical. We're spiritual and material. How do you merge both things so that you can do what you want here and that you can be fulfilled and thrive as a human being? So how can we merge how we're naturally wired for polarities and dualities and obsessiveness and deep love and deep pain to bring it all together, to use it for creation and not victimization, where we're turning the sword on ourselves and we're going into a state of entropy where we're hurting ourselves, because we're not meant to hurt ourselves here. And the addiction was just ingrained in us that, you're actually meant to hurt yourself. All religion is telling you you're meant to hurt because you're less than God, and you need to devote and you need to worship. And you need to devote from a place of self-sacrifice. For me, I'm devoted to my higher self because I'm devoted to my soul's plan. And I know that higher self will always provide me an abundance of whatever I need, which is love. Love is the highest fuel. And as long as I know how to receive that love, which is where most of us are struggling, because we don't know how to receive the love. We're afraid. We've been hurt for so long that when somebody comes in to love us or somebody comes in to give us something, we go, no, I don't want to receive that. I'm not ready to receive that. I can't receive that.
Yeah, I feel
We
like
have to be taught how.
it's interesting, because there's like different kinds of like niches in spirituality, and I feel like sometimes we can be drawn to the ones that are saying like kill the ego, like be more addicted to that kind of approach, or like you don't exist, you know, the neuroadvisor kind of yeah, those kind of phraseologies, and that can be that can be even worse for our self-worth if you don't properly
It
understand.
can be very dangerous. It can, I'm all for it also because that was the path that I took. And then that's what led me to spiritual psychosis. And again, if I didn't have my daughter, I wouldn't have pulled myself out of it to go to slap myself and wake up and go, you still got to be a human in a body. So you have to have some sort of attachment to a body, girl. What is wrong? What are you doing? You know, what are you doing right now? And I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because in the beginning of my journey, I felt like I had no choice but to go the route of no self, completely dissolve, which I'm glad that I did, because I felt that I had, which is why I'm here now, that I just like forget about the reality, go all, this is like just go all the way back to your soul, go all the way home to nothingness, but then you have to come back. And that's where I'm saying now is this flip. But then you have to come back, because if you don't leave your body, you have to come back. And for me, I've had 3 very specific experiences where I went so far into meditation where I had the choice to not come back. And back then, if it wasn't for my daughter, I wouldn't come back into my body. I would have been like, I'm done. You guys are good here. Can send the light from the other side. We're good. But the part of me that knew she wasn't going to be good was the part that was come back into the body. Now, recently, it was unhealthy for my soul to then only want to remain in this body because of her. It was a very unhealthy dynamic between her and I. And she's older now, so it's different because we can have conversations about things. But I recognize how unhealthy that was. And so I was addicted to that. I'm on earth to be here for my daughter. Like, no, don't fool yourself. Don't fool yourself. That was my martyr. So it's like I feel like it's never going to end, but now it's really fun for me to go, what are all these identities? Like, what are all these things that I think that I am, that I'm not? But it's fun now because I've addressed my pain. I was traumatized as a child. I needed to heal the separation that I felt from my mother. I needed a safe space to do that, and not knowing my father. So I let myself go into the spaces to be able to heal those so deeply. But when you try to remove identity before you even have a ground in who you are in yourself, that's a very dangerous thing. And that's where we end up in psychic wards. And that's where we end up homeless on the street talking to ourselves. And that's where we end up addicted to drugs, because there isn't a safe space for us to understand that level of awakening in the society. And this is, I mean, that's my next like biggest movement. That's just that's the future of things, of creating spaces that for those of us that are in those extremes to gather and to help move through that process to become functional again in our bodies and in our minds. But that's what's happening in our society, and we're being shunned. We're being shunned when we are unstable and addicted to drugs. No one's addressing our pain. Nobody's saying, oh, okay, you know what? This is a messed up world, and like science is not working. Until now. So now we're all doing the work to go, look, things are not okay. How do we shift it? But there aren't solutions for us. So for me, my purpose now is, how do I utilize this brain that I've been given, this neurodivergent brain? How do I utilize all these abilities that people are labeling as ADHD? Because I could do 10 tasks at once and I'm spinning, and that's a gift. It's a gift for me to spin. It's a gift now for me to manage that because it is difficult. But no one is trying to shut me down and stop me from spinning in 10 different directions. In fact, my team now is like, look, we have this bucket for this, put this on this list, put this on this list, and let's balance it out. But since I'm being given this space for that and to express that, I that's the space that I want to create for others, because I want to hear what everybody else has to say. I want to hear what their ideas are. Charlotte, when you were saying we're all puzzle pieces, I feel that, because we are all, we're all one, right? No, we're all interconnected. Mm-hmm. We're all here to connect with each other and to be in relationship and to share with each other and to see I am who I am because of all the people that I've met and what they've given to me and what I've given to them and how we've helped each other grow. And we're meant to be a network like that here on Earth. But right now, we're not operating in that way because those of us, it is very difficult when we come into families that don't understand how we operate. It's very difficult for us to harmonize, to even understand how to harmonize, especially those of us that come in with this neurodivergence. We kind of have this secret ability to be mirrors or reflections for other people. And most people, when you don't understand what's happening in that exchange, it's painful, and we can't develop relationships because we're reflecting things to people that they may not want to see. And we actually don't know how to handle or hold them through that process because we might not be whole enough in ourselves. So it creates a lot of distortion. When we start to understand how to do that, then we can fit the pieces together. You know, I had to separate from my family for about 5 years to heal and understand like everything. They used to call me you know, it's not that they used to call me, but in, you know, when you see somebody different and you're a child, and kids can be rough and kids can bully, and they go like, what are you, retarded? If you're doing some weird movements, if you can't talk, and I remember my tics used to be like so strong. Even now, like this whole area just receives so much that it's, you know, it gets tense and I have to stim and like, you know, and now I'm so free that I don't care. Like I'll just, wherever I am, I'm just like like get out.
Yeah.
I just don't care anymore. But then I used to be bullied for it, or what are you, retarded? What are you, crazy? And so I just, for myself, I had to go, yeah, this is okay. They only knew how to cope the way they knew how to cope, and I only knew how to cope the way I knew how to cope. And now I know better. And so I can open up to more love and harmony, and I can say, hey, this is who I am and this is how I operate. And I know you don't understand what it feels like because you might not be experiencing it, but just please respect how I need to process or how I need to express in this moment. And I can leave the room if you need me to. But now I just have that openness in conversation because I've spent so much time understanding who I am. There's no way that I could do it before. That's where you just cannot, if you don't know, you cannot communicate. If you don't know your needs, I'm only now identifying the level of needs that I have that were not met when I was a child. I didn't know that I needed time to regulate my system. I didn't know that I absolutely need a hot bath like almost every other night because that's going to help me be in my body and ground and feel good.
Yeah. Like
I didn't know that I didn't allow myself. Yeah, I didn't know that I didn't allow myself. This is the next point that I want to add, and I want to hear you. That I didn't allow myself to have that hot bath because as a child, we didn't have enough water at home. Do you see? And so it's like that deep process to then have my inner child, don't be mad at your grandparents because they were immigrants. They didn't have water to have hot water for all 10 people that were living in the house. And your need was unmet because we were in scarcity and we were in lack. But now you're not. So allow yourself. And even as a hedge fund manager, I didn't even allow myself to understand. I was still in scarcity in myself. I didn't even allow myself to understand what I was coming into because of all these patterns. I didn't allow myself to fully receive the role that I am stepping into now. And in my process of doing that now I'm seeing all those deeper layers of scarcity and lack beliefs from my childhood because we just grew up poor. And now I can rewrite them and go, what is the abundance that I need to receive in this moment? Oh yeah, I could have the hottest bath in the world right now. You know, we can let the water run and we'll be okay. And I need that. So simple things like that in the beginning of just identifying what do I need right now to help me feel safe in my body. And how I do want to tie that back into what you were saying about the other types of spirituality where it's get rid of it. because you can then disassociate from the body in doing that, which is okay, but unsafe if you don't feel safe coming back into the body after that. And if we have experienced trauma, which all of us have to certain degrees, unsafe trauma being unsafety and needs being unmet in childhood, when you have a deep spiritual experience and your body doesn't feel safe to receive you back in it, you create deep disconnection from the world, and you create deep disconnection from your body, and then you don't know what you need to spiritually integrate properly.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's really confusing sometimes on like setting healthy boundaries, because we're different and we feel like we need to fit in, or there's the other side of the victim mentality, which is like the martyr, like I'm going to be everything for everyone, or like this is my purpose, like to make sacrifices, to be like many things all the time, and to um, go at the pace of society while being different as well, and like do everything. And there can be like, yeah, it, like I'm curious about how you found your own pace at like growing, like not shrinking into withdrawal, and then just overexposing yourself to people, like finding that balance, and like knowing that this is a journey, and like it's not going to happen overnight, and but at the same time you can improve. And how did you go through a process where you realized that you could do this in a consistent sort of way at your own pace, as long as you had a certain amount of discipline, and balancing that self-love and self-discipline? So
Mm-hmm.
that's something you went
2 years ago, I was gonna quit everything. 2 years ago, I was gonna quit everything because I was in a state of feeling so overwhelmed, because I was operating from that place that you just described of I have to do everything and be everything for everyone.
yeah.
And that was my mind's interpretation of being in a fully realized, a fully open state, that, oh, you have so much energy now that you just have to give it all away to everyone. And I have to be this energy, because when I'm in meditation, I am this energy and I can harness it. And I have to bring that to the world. So bring it to clients, bring it to my team, be a mother, do all of the things that I need to do, and make sure that I am the highest version of myself for others, and put my needs second, because you know what? I'm harnessing the energy that I need to be harnessing, and I deserve less than. So when I hit that point, I didn't even realize that's where I was operating from. What showed me I was operating from that place was when the crypto market crashed, and then I could no longer. It just had like a small mini crash, and we lost a lot of resources, and I just couldn't do the things that I was doing before, and I had to stop and evaluate and go, where am I doing all of this from? What am I doing? And what do I want to be doing? And I was going to quit. I don't, right now I cannot create this institute that I'm creating. Although I know people need this, they need this work. I can't do it, and I'm not going to do it from this place. And I think that that's where, because I knew that I wasn't addicted to that pain anymore, or addicted to producing that. And I knew that I was in a place where my basic needs and my daughter's basic needs were going to be met. So I just said, I'm not, like, what am I even going to do this for? What am I even going to create for? I have no desire to look like some public figure. I have no desire. I really have no desire to be seen. And not from this place of being afraid of being seen, because clearly I'm here, but I have no desire to be seen, because I do know that I can sit in meditation and radiate my love out to the world. I know that I can do that, and that is more than enough. And again, like when you dive deeper though, your soul will communicate and go, no, you just have to learn how to hold more. You have to learn how to expand more and let go of having to do for others. So how do you want to do your work? How do you want to do your work? what would that look like for you? So I sat with myself and go, oh, I want half the size of this company that I'm thinking that was being built. Oh, I only want this amount of close team members that I'm communicating with, and then they could communicate with everybody else. Oh, you know what? I want way more time to be able to just be on FaceTime with my daughter when she just wants to just talk about whatever she needs to talk about and not be booked back and forth for these meetings or that. I don't want to do that. So I don't have to do that. And it is now it's continually a process because there will always be asks and requests from people. And there will always be a part of me that wants to honor everybody and that I connect with and everybody. But then there's the part of me that has to do it intuitively and go, you know, how am I honoring? I mean, I can just use the example, Ran, of I called you before we started and I was like, hey, I really need to take a shower. I just finished meditation. I really need to take a shower. Can we start 15 minutes later? You know, like that's just it in action of, wow, what do I need right now? And I really need this, or I cannot get on this call and feel full and feel like I'm delivering from a full place. So for me, it's that daily, do I feel full right now? And can I look at all the commitments that I've made? Because we don't know ahead of time. And sometimes I'll get booked things for things ahead of time. And that week, I'm like, this is not the week for me to be doing this. But if I can be open with my communications and my needs, then I find that's where synchronicity occurs. You know, and when I called you and you said, yes, it's okay, great, beautiful, let's go. And it really is that simple. When we have unhealed patterning, which also, to touch on the neurodivergence, it's also what creates a lot of separation in our brain, the separation between the spiritual nature and the material nature. And that's why so that separation creates the gap that allows us to go in a downward spiral and into a very negative place. When we're not addressing our needs, that's when we start pulling into that negative place. We first have to find
how you can still sort of like function in the world from that place of insanity and like not realize or admit to yourself that you've like lost it and your body is just doing all this stuff and you think that you're like,
Autopilot.
yeah.
that's where I created my first company from. And I had to quit. I was like, what? Like, what did you just do? You know? And then that's where I was starting to create this from. And I just, no, but I have good people in my life. The thing is, I have good people in my life to keep me in check. Like, hey, Hemma, I don't think you're really healthy right now. I don't think you're doing this from the healthiest place. Hemma, I don't think that feels, Hemma, this doesn't feel good for me. Don't treat me like this. You know, it's like, I'm so sorry. I didn't even know what I was doing. But we have that space to communicate with each other like that. And that's all we really need to come back into that balance and to go, because the insanity only comes from feeling guilty from just doing what you feel like you need to do, or feeling the insanity only comes from not really understanding how you're feeling, and then that it's okay that you're feeling that. And I have so many experience of this. I mean, this is like daily. For me, it's daily, because it's in every interaction that you have with someone, and then you feel bad about something, and then it's me just going like, but what is the truth right now? Oh, you know what? It's okay that I feel this way towards this person. It's just okay. It's okay. I don't have to make myself wrong for that. I don't have to express it to them. I don't need them to fix it. But it's just okay. Like, just taking that moment and going, it's okay that you don't understand what the hell is going on right now. It's okay. And for example, today we were walking through the city and there was this huge protest. You know what's going on in the world. I don't even have to go in that direction. And I said, I'm not on either side of anything, and I don't want to take this energy in. And I know that I'm okay, that I'm not trying to ignore the problem here. I know that for a fact, and that's okay. I'm not going to get pulled into anybody's direction right now. So let me remain in my heart, and I'm sending out like a whole rainbow. I feel like a Care Bear sometimes, and like I'm sending out a whole rainbow energy out, and I'm not going to be pulled into anything.
Superpower. It's fine.
Yeah.
And then that's okay. That's completely okay. But that's where you know, we feel insane because if people that we love don't understand why we're okay being like that, then we don't understand why we're okay with that. And then that creates the loop. But when we can just come into that understanding that nobody's going to understand each other until until they understand themselves, and all you need to do is understand yourself, and that it's okay for us to seek safe spaces to understand ourselves. And what I'm starting to find is that maybe not all spiritual spaces or self-realization spaces are the safest spaces for us to seek understanding of self. What would those spaces now look like based on what we are experiencing? Because a lot of self-realization came from 5,000 years ago, which, like, hey, we're just in different times. So those texts are not accounting for what we are experiencing in day-to-day life. So they are not as accurate and as useful as they were then. The core principles they are timeless. The core principles are timeless. However, practices need to be adjusted based on being mothers, being women, being in a society that we live in that's functioning the way that it's functioning with Bluetooth technology and everything that we're utilizing now in AI. That wasn't written then. So we just need this upgrade of what does this space look like for us to know ourselves and deepen within ourselves. And so it is daily, and I got a bit far from your question, but it is a daily me checking in. What do I do right now in this moment? How am I feeling? Am I giving too much of myself? Do I need to say no to this? Do I need to communicate about this? And being okay with adjusting it. Do I need to pull back on this? Was I just in a super manic, excited state when I said yes to this project? And now I got to call them and go, hey, I don't feel like I have the resources for this. What can we do? Like, that's what it is.
Yeah, right. That was an amazing answer. Coming out of it. Yeah, so yeah, and it's really, yeah, it's our own journey in terms of like finding practices that work for us, in the sea of like all these teachers and gurus and like all trying to sell us their particular modality. Um, and I think it is actually important to stick to something for a while and stick to a teacher for a while, because otherwise you're just super distracted and you can use that distraction as an excuse to not be fully self-aware and be honest that maybe it's not actually your genuine intention to heal and to do, like do the work of, yeah, because it is hard work. And yeah, so it's an interesting puzzle, like, like not beat yourself up too much if something doesn't work for you, but also, understand why that didn't work and try to figure that out, and make that really important to you, because otherwise you can just go around in circles and feel like you're going somewhere, but actually you're just you're living a kind of Groundhog's Day, just with different furniture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Discovering yourself is so fun, and life is so much better than what we've been led to believe. It really is.
Yeah, the
A
potential
little
is
more
infinite.
exciting. We do have
Exactly.
control.
Because I feel like when I look back at actually the where I'm staying now, I was here 7 years ago last. And 7 years ago is when I just started the journey, and I was getting the downloads of who I am, of what I am right now. Insane. Like, that's the best type of insanity to experience, to know that I stuck through every dark night, every challenge, the courage, the bravery, the pure intent, which means like facing yourself and seeing all the ways that you lack pure intent, all the ways that you lack integrity, all the ways that you are not honoring yourself or honoring other. And being here 7 years later, and like, I'm living that dream that got downloaded. I mean, I think it's hitting me like real. I actually gotta take a moment for that right now.
That's incredible. Rand, have you been
Like
able
7 years
to
ago,
meditate yet? I know you have had issues in your life, and I have. So that's not something I've been able to utilize yet. I've gotten downloads in other ways, but not meditation.
Yeah, I find that
I'm sure a whole new world.
so I find that, like the typical like breath work doesn't actually work so well for me. I actually prefer doing art therapy, like writing down my mantras, and then looking at them and like drawing what I feel is the person that I want to be and what I want to express. And sometimes it doesn't look the way I thought it was going to be. Like sometimes it's just like something really silly like a fish with like 8 eyes, and then that makes me laugh and it releases the whatever shame. And I realize that actually I'm a unique person. I don't have to be someone else. I create what I create. And you know that gives me that helps me remember my self-worth more so than trying to concentrate on my breath and worrying about like whether I was doing it right as well, because I can get stuck in my head about like giving meaning to my level of like spirituality sometimes, and like get overly serious about it. So
Yes. Like I feel like I have to be in control. I have to control everything. I can't just let loose and like let my mind go. It's so hard.
I feel like understanding that meditation is a dynamic process is helpful. That I'm gonna, for me, whenever I sit down for a meditation, which is often, because it is a skill that is needed to center and balance the self and the being and in the body, but understanding that it's a dynamic process. So I'm gonna sit down. Mind is gonna go everywhere it needs to go, however it needs to go. I'm going to take a breath when I feel like I need to take a breath. I'm going to shake a little bit. I'm just not going to move from the spot that I'm sitting. That's it. Like for me, that's what's important. Just don't move from the spot that you're sitting, but do whatever you need to do to be really centered in yourself, in that you're aware of all the things that are happening while you're sitting still in that spot. That's been the most helpful thing for me too, because especially with OCD and ADHD, I have a tendency to be working on multiple things at once. Be everywhere except the present, move things around and be doing things that are draining my energy that I don't even recognize as draining my energy. But in that moment that I can allow myself to just sit and not following any specific breath pattern. There are many different techniques, but now I breathe deep because I know I want to feel my body and I want oxygen to go into the parts that I need oxygenated, but I don't use any particular pattern. And then like shake out when I need to shake. Like a lot of my meditations are like when the thoughts are too much, it's just, you remember, Rand, like we were that's what we were doing. Like just shake it out. That's meditation to me, because you know what? This is my auric field and I'm clearing this out of my auric field. And I'm very centered in the fact that I just need to be focused on my body and what needs to be cleared out of my body right now in this moment, and I'm letting my body be free to express. And then that just calms and centers. And the movements are unique to us. So for me, that's the strongest practice, is sitting there and seeing what my body wants and needs and how unique. I feel good now, guys. I don't even want to talk anymore.
I like how you mentioned to me how like Mai Tai was the only thing that helped you overcome chronic fatigue, and you were like really happy telling me about it. Like some people might think, oh, I need to follow this diet cleanse or protocol, and if I don't do it, it means that I failed, or and that's just not the case.
I love, so discipline and devotion. We were talking about this today. Discipline, a lot of us, so this is what I was saying, I was sharing with one of my friends. A lot of us don't lack discipline. We have a discipline of lack. Like we're disciplined in lack. So quitting a cleanse is discipline. It's a discipline in lack. And then feeling bad about it is a discipline of lack. And we start things because we start them from a place of lack. Instead of saying, how is this going to fill me up? I need to cleanse because I'm dirty and I'm unworthy and I have to get things out of my system. Do you see that? So I'm starting a cleanse from a place of lack. What do you think that's going to create? More lack, more self-hate, more guilt, more shame. So find the thing that it's truly going to make you feel better. So if it's drawing fishes with 8 eyes, like whatever it is, what is the thing that's truly going to make you feel better? Truly going to make you feel better and not pretend that you're feeling better. That's it. Like, what is truly in this moment going to make me feel better?
Mm-hmm.
Is fasting going to make me feel? No, it's going to make me feel like more shit right now. So what do I want? I want to go have a donut instead. But am I going to feel bad about eating the donut? That's what I got to work on. I have to work on, am I going to feel bad for what I really need? That's the discipline. How do I stop feeling bad for asking for and receiving what I really need? That's what we need to be disciplined in. Because the moment that we can clear that feeling of feeling bad for asking for what we truly want and need, then we can understand what is the discipline that we need. So for me, Muay Thai bring me so much joy, and in addition, healed my body. But I just loved hitting shit. Sorry if I don't know how curses work and I don't know where you're gonna put it, but like I just loved hitting things. I love like just that's what I love to do. Byproduct was a whole lot of discipline and spiritual awakening. That was super fun. So find that. Do that instead of I need to fast or cleanse. No. If you don't naturally have the discipline. Now, I naturally fasted and cleanses in Muay Thai because I wanted to be good. I wanted to be good at what I was doing. It was my art. It was my sport. So naturally, I'm going to discipline myself to what brings me most joy. And even now, I love doing energy work. So me like doing this, I'm doing so much in it, and I'm going to be so disciplined to keep my body in the shape to be able to do it because I love doing it. And that's where discipline should come from, not from lack, but from joy. And the same with devotion to a teacher. You should feel so much joy when you're around that teacher. You shouldn't feel like bad about yourself. You should feel so excited to learn from that teacher. And then you commit for a year or two. Give yourself milestones. Okay, what is this teacher teaching me? What do I want to, number one, and this is what I use for any mentor also, for the same. For 2 years, right? What do I want to accomplish or receive or experience in the next 2 years? Can this person offer that to me? And what are the milestones for me to check in with myself that this person is offering that? So every 6 months or 3 months, depending, I would say when you're just beginning, give 6 months to attune to a teacher. But every 6 months, I'm going to check in. Have I received what I feel like I needed to receive from this teacher? Is this teacher helping me understand my worth? Is this teacher helping me understand how to operate in the world in a way that feels good to me? Is this teacher helping me remove limiting beliefs from my space? Am I feeling even more good about myself? When I do this practice, am I feeling even more good about myself? Am I feeling even more in tune with myself? And have I achieved XYZ? So for example, if I'm going to pick up a mentor, in 6 months, I want to create XYZ. I'm going to check in with myself now every quarter, every 3 months. So I'm using it in a business context, but in spiritual, same thing. This is the same, because as I work on my business, I need to go deeper spiritually connected to who I am. So it's the same. So in 3 months, am I closer to this result? Okay, if yes, then great, we keep going. If no, I'm going to ask the teacher, well, what's wrong here? Now, you can't do that if you're just reading a book or whatever, if you're not interacting with the person, which is also why I just advise, find somebody that you can actually connect with and ask questions to and be able to communicate, and then see if that, because that is a need that's being met. You know, we can read books and we can pick up what we need from books, and we can watch lectures and we can pick up what we,
Yeah, I feel
true
like
attunement.
because
There is
we're
in
always,
dialogue.
yeah, because wherever we're always filtering it through our particular belief systems, and we have like we have a habit of thinking that we're right in the way that we're interpreting it, and sometimes we need someone to like interact with and say, no, that's actually, yeah, that's a very like, it's a very prejudiced or a very like, you know, um, that's not how I meant it, or it was meant in this context and that for that person, not for you. And that's really important.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I love that you bring that up because it's the same for me when I'm guiding someone, because I do it very unique to who the individual is. Your blueprint is not somebody else's blueprint. And what I'm telling you might not apply for them because you know what? They didn't grow up and they're not experiencing, they don't experience life the way you experience life. And it actually doesn't apply the same way because I could tell person A, go eat donuts, live your life and be free. That's not going to apply to person B. It's, you know what, work on the guilt and the shame around that and actually don't consume that and know that you're loving yourself because you're not consuming that, because you've consumed it from a place of not loving yourself. And actually the habit that you need to rewire is to stop it and have a boundary with it and learn how to release the guilt and shame around it. But somebody might be bulimic or anorexic and it's like, no, just eat it. It's okay. Do you see it? It's, and in our spiritual journeys, the blueprints in our souls is the same exact way.
Mm-hmm.
And there can be blanket information that's given, but it also applies very differently to a person's life circumstance. And this is also like the beauty and the madness of Earth, right? The beauty and the madness of your human experience, that we can have the same exact experience and it be completely different for each person. That's what creates the confusion and the complexity. And that's why we're here learning discernment. So if you go into anything knowing that my only lesson here is discernment, my biggest lesson is discernment, then you'll learn, then you'll understand how to navigate that, because then you're training yourself to be your own guide. How do I discern my own truth?
Yeah, it's like comparison. Do we have any more time? Yeah, comparison is like such a double-edged sword. It's like you can use someone as inspiration and see, they've gone through what looks like the exact same thing that I went through. So it can be really inspiring. It's like, then it means that I can do that same thing and follow those exact same footprints and just, like model myself after that person. And if I don't do that, then it means that's XYZ about me. But it's I just want to add that like discernment and also just having faith. Like I feel like that's what we're here to learn as well. In such a in a world of so much confusion, like everyone's journey is so different and non-linear, and there's no, you can.
I mean, faith is the biggest thing. And I feel like for me, just knowing that no matter what, I'm going to be okay. No matter how poor I was, no matter how painful I was in a relationship, even now, no matter how the market crashes or whatever, or no matter like if people respond in XYZ, no matter what, I'm okay. I'm okay. I am A-okay. I will be okay. And then that keeps you connected and opens you up to solutions and allows you to keep going. And that's all we need to hear. And that's all that we really need to know, because then we can figure out our shit on our own. And then it's like that we don't really need teachers in that sense. We don't really need teachers.
Yeah, it's like we are our own greatest teacher.
Yeah.
We will find it within ourselves in this lifetime. It's going to be a journey.
Because we will always need instruction. Like this is what I love. Like I'm in my gift and I can provide instructions for something, and you can allow yourself to come into that framework and feel and mold it and utilize it to create for you until you know your own instruction, until you remember your own instructions. And then for me, that's how we just map out the beauty of our souls and we share that with each other. And yes, you could call that a teaching, because we just need to clean up these words in the context that are around these words, where it's like, no, we're not above or less than, or have to keep ourselves in all that battle around these words and how it's been used and how we've experienced teachers in the past and teachings in the past, and open up to this. Everyone's a teacher. Everything is a teaching. How do I have faith and discernment in what I'm learning and what I'm experiencing right now?
Yeah. Shai, do you feel like sharing anything?
Yeah, it's a lot of information, but I love everything that you've talked about. I resonate. It's just been a fun thing to learn about myself, and I feel like we are one. We're all different, but we're all one. And so what I learn from myself, I can then share with other people. And then you might say, hey, that makes sense for me as well. Sharing ideas with anyone who come across is always great too.
Okay.
Yeah, don't stay quiet. If you feel like you need to say something to somebody, say it, share it with them.
Yeah. Okay, so I love this conversation, and I feel like just want to end it with asking Hema if what kind of vision do you have for people going through spiritual awakenings, and especially neurodivergent people who don't yet know their worth and need that support. And is there anything that you're working on right now that you're really excited about to share? Or
Yeah, I'm creating a whole institute to help us gather and share space and share our gifts and our abilities. I'm also in the process of creating a format for us to be able to be in meditation together, to have certain practices together, to share with each other what we're practicing, what we're working on, what we plan on working on in the future. And also connecting that to a business framework. If there's something that you're wanting to, if you have the entrepreneurial spirit and you're wanting to create something in the world, and being able to find others that are creating similar things so that we can plug into each other. I've been working on this in so many different ways over the past 3 years. Now is when I'm putting it into a solid format, because I feel like I can commit to holding that space for myself. And then I feel like we're able to build it in a way that is very co-creative and community based, and a way that's very fluid and free flowing. I don't have links or anything available yet, but what I would advise is follow me on Instagram, so at HEMMAHARIDIN.com, and that's where I post all the updates on everything. Yeah, that's the best thing to do right now. And I will have a link up there soon for a free training that I created that goes over all the points that everything that we just talked about, how we're different and how we just need to be okay with our differences. And there are certain limiting beliefs that we can look at when we're starting our journey, or no, it doesn't matter where we're at, because these beliefs are in layers, and what I held 7 years ago, I'm still holding now to a different degree. And as I keep going, I'm just unraveling these same threads, because it's all the core, what our depression, the core of anything that we're feeling that makes us feel less than, is having been under this veil of separation of coming into a human body in your incarnation. So if we can just go back to that very core of, oh, I came into this body and forgot who I am, and then got piled with all of these other belief systems, and we can have a space to just sort out the noise of all that patterning that is not us, then we will be okay, and we can open up to creative expression, and we can open up to manifestations, and we can open up to community in a way that feels good for all of us, where we can be seen. So there's a training that I do on that, and how to number one, just be aware of there's a space like this for us, and there are others like there are so many of us, and we don't have to stay in the shame and the isolation that we're stuck in right now. And then how to open yourself up to receiving more of that energy from your higher self, to understand what your blueprint is and what your path is, what you outlined for yourself. Because sometimes I think we all know what it is, but we don't get it. When we don't get it reflected to us, then we think we're crazy, we think we're insane, and it's a crazy idea, and that it's not the truth, and that it's impossible. And none of that is true. Everything is possible to create once you're in awareness that you can. So the training helps you lock into that, what you feel is your blueprint or what you feel is your calling, you can lock in and you can strengthen it. And some practices on how to just move it through your body, what I did earlier, just me sharing that, because I think us just sharing in that space. I mean, I love doing it with my team, and I call this a harmonic formation. So we all just have our different harmonies and we're just playing in harmony with each other. And so we're in space and we just kind of, in meetings or anything, we're just like moving, downloading, sharing, tapping into a field that just creates connection. And I do that in the space, and I invite everyone into the space. And I think that is a very fun place for people to join in. So that's going to be available very soon, and they can go on my Instagram for that.
Yeah, so just for anyone watching, just know that, you know, if you're neurodivergent, you're definitely not alone, and there are so many resources out there and so many people like HEMMA who are creating these sorts of projects and communities, and you know, the training ground for who you were created to be, who you were created to be, and who you are going to create yourself to be. And yeah, this was great. I feel like this
Yeah, I had so much fun.
I feel incredibly blessed to have been here and to listen to you, Hema. And Rand, thank you.
Yeah, and thank you both so much for being here and sharing, because this is just what we need to do. So thank you guys for being so brave and courageous and opening up the space and sharing all of that.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. I feel like this is a good place to end the call, and yeah. See you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.